I'm Olivia Turner, 32 years old, and if you had told me that my own sister would one day kick me out of Thanksgiving dinner for being too blue-collar to sit among her lawyer friends, I never would have believed you. Yet that is exactly what happened last November, and the fallout shattered our family in ways none of us could have foreseen. My sister Madison believed she was protecting her reputation, hiding her HVAC technician sister from her prestigious colleagues, but what she never imagined was that I had been quietly financing her entire legal education and that I controlled something far more valuable than her curated image. It began 3 days before Thanksgiving when Madison called me as I sat reviewing million-dollar HVAC contracts, though she assumed I was probably under someone's sink. "Olivia, about Thursday," she said nervously. "I need to talk about the dinner." I could already hear where this was headed. Well, some colleagues from the firm are coming, important people, partners, maybe even Robert Harrison. The name meant nothing to me then, but it soon would. She asked me not to say I was an HVAC technician, but instead a climate control consultant, and suggested I wear the navy dress from Cousin Janet's wedding. Too tired to argue, I agreed, though the words burned. To Madison, I would always be the sister who chose trade school over law school. I arrived early at her colonial Westchester home, ready to help with cooking, but instead of a greeting, she glanced at my jeans and whispered, "Some people are coming early. Maybe you should change now." While I dressed, I heard her frantically staging the house, even removing our photo from my trade school graduation. By 2, the lawyers began arriving, and Madison transformed into a version of herself I barely recognized, her laugh higher, her smile fixed. She introduced me as working in the technical sector, reducing me to some vague accessory in her perfect tableau. Then Robert Harrison walked in, older, distinguished, with eyes sharp enough to strip away facades. When Madison introduced us, his gaze lingered. "Olivia Turner," he repeated thoughtfully. "Why does that name sound familiar?" Madison's laugh came too fast, too bright, but he wasn't fooled. During cocktails, she seated me at the far end of the room, but a young associate named Derek wandered over, asking politely what technical sector meant. Before I could answer, Madison swooped in. "She fixes air conditioners," she said with a fake laugh that seared me with humiliation. I tried to correct her, but she cut me off with a dismissive smile, treating my company as if it were some childish fantasy. Derek excused himself, whispering to another associate as they both laughed. In the kitchen, Madison hissed, "I've worked too hard for this dinner. You don't fit in that room. I'll tell them you're not feeling well." Her words struck like blows, and though she tried to soften them, the truth slipped out. Well, I am ashamed. Aunt Carol, who had watched silently from the doorway, later told me that Dad would have been heartbroken, but in that moment, I remembered his dying words. "Take care of your sister. She needs someone strong like you." That night after his funeral, I had sold my car, liquidated my retirement, and set up an anonymous trust that paid for every semester, every bar exam, every apartment deposit Madison ever had. She believed it was Dad's forgotten investment, but it was me working 18-hour days, taking dangerous industrial jobs, all so she could live her dream. As Aunt Carol whispered, "Sometimes the best way to take care of someone is to let them face the consequences." I didn't know how prophetic that would be. Dinner began at 4, the seating arranged to keep me near the kitchen while Madison basked at the center. The conversation flowed around billion-dollar mergers until Robert Harrison set down his glass and addressed me directly. "Miss Turner, Turner Climate Solutions, that's your company, isn't it?" The table froze. Madison stammered, "She just does small repairs," but Robert didn't relent. "Your company bid on the Hartley Building project last month. We represent them." Every eye turned to me. "Yes," I said quietly. "That's my company." Madison shot to her feet, insisting I was lying, but Robert corrected her with calm authority. "Turner Climate Solutions had $40 million in revenue last year. They're the largest independent HVAC contractor in the state." The silence that followed was suffocating. Madison's mask cracked, anger spilling through as she hissed, "She's trying to humiliate me. She doesn't belong here. She never has." Her voice rose, accusing me of being just a technician, just the daughter of a broke plumber, just an embarrassment. I stood slowly, reaching for my purse. "You're right, Madison," I said. "I don't belong anywhere near someone who's ashamed of her own family." I typed a quick message to my CFO and pulled out a manila envelope, the Turner Climate Solutions logo blazing on its surface. Madison sneered. "What's that, an invoice for Thanksgiving?" I placed it on the table without answering. Robert's eyes locked on the logo, immediately recognizing its weight. Then I laid down a second, smaller envelope embossed with our father's name. "Actually, Dad left you something after all," I said, daring her to open it. She ripped it open angrily, only for the color to drain from her face as she read the letterhead. "Whitman Family Trust, Educational Fund, Administrator Olivia Turner." The truth unfurled in the shocked silence. 7 years of tuition, bar fees, rent, all paid by me. "You're lying," she whispered, but Aunt Carol confirmed it, her signature notarizing the documents. I told Madison, "The bar exam prep you thought you won in a raffle, the car payment you couldn't cover. Every dollar was me." Her colleagues murmured, the walls of her perfect world crumbling. Robert demanded answers, and Madison could only gasp. My voice steady, I told them. "She spent 7 years being ashamed of me, ashamed of our father, ashamed of where we came from. Tonight, she made it clear I don't belong in her world. So I'm leaving." I pointed to the manila envelope. Inside is a contract termination notice. As of Monday, Harrison and Associates has 30 days to find a new HVAC contractor. Robert's face strained, but I kept going. "Everything has a price, Madison. Even family loyalty." I walked to the door as Madison screamed, "You can't do this," but I already had. Behind me, Aunt Carol said softly, "Open it, Madison." The scene hadn't even started yet. The room was chaos behind me as I reached for my coat, voices rising, chairs scraping, Madison's shrill protests drowning under the weight of Robert Harrison's authority. But then he appeared in the foyer, his voice low and deliberate, asking me to wait. "You really own Turner Climate Solutions?" he pressed. 8 years now," I replied. "The same company maintaining your office building and 60 others." His astonishment was genuine. "We've been trying to expand with you for months, but your sister," he trailed off, glancing back at the dining room where Madison's mask had fully shattered. Her colleagues now saw her as the woman who humiliated her own sister, the very sister who held their contracts in her hands. Madison stumbled forward, mascara streaking, her voice cracking. "Olivia, please, let's talk." But I wasn't interested in apologies born of exposure. "Now you want to talk?" I said. "After you told me to hide in the kitchen? After you erased Dad from your mantle and tried to erase me, too?" She sobbed, insisting it had all been stress, pressure, but the truth was laid bare. 7 years of shame, of trying to distance herself from the plumber's daughter, of disowning her own roots. The other lawyers watched in silence, riveted as I pulled out a final document. "This is a cessation of support notice," I said, handing it to her. "Legally notarized, effective immediately. The trust is terminated. The HVAC contract will end in 30 days. And as for us, Madison, you terminated that relationship yourself tonight." She staggered, begging that she'd lose everything, her apartment, her car, her future. "Then work for it," I replied coldly. "The way I did." Robert scanned the paper, impressed despite himself. "Ironclad," he murmured. Madison tried to stand tall, pleading, "Please, Olivia, I'm sorry." But I told her the truth. She wasn't sorry for what she did, only sorry she got caught, sorry there were consequences. When asked when she'd ever planned to thank me, silence was her only answer. I signed the notice with finality, telling her it was over. "You wanted me gone, Madison. Congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted." I left her standing amid the ruins of her own ambition, Aunt Carol declaring to the stunned lawyers, "This isn't cruelty. This is justice." The aftermath was brutal and swift. By Monday, my CFO delivered the termination notice, plunging Harrison and Associates into an operational crisis as they scrambled for a new contractor in the dead of winter. By Tuesday, Madison had been demoted, her dreams of partnership evaporating as she was reassigned to the basement for document review. By Wednesday, Columbia Law demanded repayment of her final $50,000 semester, money she'd counted on me to provide. By Friday, whispers of her disgrace had spread through the legal community. The lawyer who mocked her blue-collar sister only to discover that sister was a millionaire CEO who had bankrolled her success. She became a cautionary tale, while I secured the Hartley contract worth $50 million over 5 years. Robert Harrison himself offered me recommendations that Open Doors Madison could never have unlocked. At home, the family fallout burned like wildfire. Cousins she had mocked for their ordinary jobs now mocked her in return. Aunt Carol posted the trust documents, receipts of every payment I had made. Even Mom called from Florida, furious, telling Madison she was ashamed to have raised someone so ungrateful. Madison tried to spin the story, painting me as jealous, but no one believed her. She was uninvited from family gatherings, turned into the family shame she had always feared. Christmas came without her. New Year's saw her leaving Aunt Carol's party in humiliation, and her career spiraled downward, reduced to a smaller firm in Queens, half the salary, twice the commute. Meanwhile, my company flourished, expanding to hundreds of employees and securing national recognition. 6 months later, Madison wrote me a letter, confessing she had spent months in therapy, that she was disgusted with herself for the 7 years she had taken my sacrifice and returned only shame. She admitted she had been so afraid of being seen as less than that she had become less than human, and though she begged no forgiveness, she acknowledged that I had been her hero all along. I read her words and replied simply, "If you're serious about changing, prove it. Not to me, but to yourself. Work, pay your debts, learn dignity. Maybe one day we can have coffee. But that day isn't today." Because I had finally learned that setting boundaries with family isn't cruelty, it's survival. I had kept my promise to Dad long enough, and in the end, Madison's downfall was her own making. She forgot where she came from, and hollow people always collapse under the weight of their own emptiness. That Thanksgiving taught me never to be ashamed of honest work, never to let anyone diminish its dignity, and never to forget your roots. Because roots, unlike reputations, can weather any storm.